Every morning, we open our eyes to a brand new opportunity, a fresh start that holds within it the power to reshape the direction of our lives. But here's the thing, most people don't even notice it. They wake up and immediately react. Check their phones, scroll through messages, dive straight into the noise of the world. They let the outside world set the tone before their inner world has had a chance to breathe. That's not how you improve. That's how you survive. And we're not here to survive. We're here to evolve. Improving yourself 1% every morning doesn't begin with hustle. It doesn't start with a to-do list or some perfect plan. It starts with presence. Just that, simple, powerful, and overlooked. It's about taking a moment, not even 5 minutes, maybe just one, to come back to yourself, to feel your body, to breathe consciously, to recognize that you've just been gifted another day, another chance. That awareness, that conscious pause, is the first brick you lay each morning on the foundation of your personal evolution. Now, presence isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing one thing fully. Whether it's sipping your tea without distraction, watching the sunrise, or simply noticing your breath while sitting on the edge of your bed. This is where your improvement begins. Because if you can master the first moment of the day, you can influence how the rest of it unfolds. Think about it. If the first thing you do is react, you're already handing over control. But if the first thing you do is observe, gently, without judgment, you reclaim that control. That's self-leadership. And that's where self-improvement becomes sustainable. This isn't about perfection. You'll still have mornings where you forget, where you slip back into old patterns. That's part of it. The goal isn't to never stumble. The goal is to remember faster, to notice when you're drifting, and to return. Even that act of returning, no matter how small, is improvement. That's your 1%. The difference between drifting unconsciously and gently returning to awareness. That's where transformation lives, and you don't need anyone to witness it for it to be real. You'll feel it. You'll feel the difference between being dragged by life and deliberately stepping into it. Most people are looking for change in the wrong places. They want to overhaul everything at once. They think improvement means radical shifts and huge achievements. But that mindset often leads to burnout, not growth. The kind of improvement that lasts, the kind that changes who you are, is subtle, quiet, internal. It happens when nobody's watching, and it starts before the world has a chance to demand something from you. So tomorrow morning, when your eyes open, don't reach for your phone. Don't reach for the world. Reach inward. Place your attention on your breath. Feel your body. Remind yourself, right now, I am here. And that is enough. That small act of awareness creates space, and in that space possibility is born. A clear mind, a relaxed body, a calm presence. That's the soil where your best actions grow from. Without that foundation, everything you build sits on shaky ground. Presence doesn't mean sitting still for an hour. It means being fully where you are, even if just for a moment. Because the way you begin the day is the way you teach your mind and body what kind of day you want. Chaos or clarity, noise or stillness, distraction or direction. Every morning, you're teaching yourself how to live, one small choice at a time. When you understand that, you stop underestimating the power of the beginning. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You start creating it slowly, quietly, through the way you enter the day. You begin to realize that the first victory is not out there. It's within. And when you win there, even just 1%, everything else follows. That's how the day becomes yours before the world even wakes up. And that's how the journey begins. Right there in the stillness, where you meet yourself before you meet the world. The first hour of your day is not just time passing by. It's a statement. It declares how seriously you're taking your life. That early space, when the world is still quiet and your mind hasn't yet been pulled in 1,000 directions, is when your power is most accessible. But it's also when most people give it away. They wake up and immediately hand over their energy to notifications, to stress, to worry, to habit. And once that first hour slips through your fingers, it's almost like the rest of the day follows the same pattern. But if you can win the first hour, you shift everything. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Winning that hour doesn't mean doing 10 things or cramming in a superhuman routine. It just means being intentional. It means using that window of stillness to reconnect with what actually matters. It's less about what you do and more about how you do it. Maybe it's stretching for 10 minutes. Maybe it's writing down 3 thoughts in a notebook. Maybe it's just drinking water and sitting with your thoughts. But what matters is that you choose it. You own it. That's the win. Because here's the truth. Your brain in the first hour is like wet cement. Whatever impressions you make during that time, they harden and set the tone. If you fill your mind with chaos, that becomes your filter for the rest of the day. But if you fill it with clarity, with steadiness, even with silence, then everything that follows gets colored by that intention. You approach your challenges differently. You respond instead of react. You're not rushing through the day. You're leading it. And this is not about becoming someone else. This is about remembering who you are. In that first hour, before the world tries to tell you who to be, you get to remind yourself of your values, your goals, your direction. That's where you lay the groundwork. That's where you build alignment. That's where you say to yourself, I'm not going to drift today. I'm going to move with purpose. Now, some people hear this and think they need to completely redesign their life to make it work. But you don't need an hour to start. You just need to reclaim whatever part of it you can. Even 10 minutes of deep, focused presence can shift your state. Even one ritual, done with consistency, can become your anchor. The point is not to do more. It's to choose better. To protect your first moments like sacred ground, because in many ways, they are. And you'll notice, once you begin to win that hour regularly, something changes in your posture toward life. You're no longer just reacting to what comes your way. You're moving ahead of it. You're preparing your mind, training your emotions, setting your energy. The day doesn't get to decide how you show up. You already decided. People often chase motivation or discipline, thinking those are the answers. But they overlook the deeper mechanism rhythm. The rhythm of your morning becomes the rhythm of your life. If your mornings are rushed, scattered, unconscious, then your life often mirrors that. But if your mornings are deliberate, composed, and steady, you create a life that reflects those same qualities. That's why the first hour matters. That's why you win the day when you win the morning. And you'll find that it's not even about productivity in the traditional sense. This isn't about squeezing more into your schedule. It's about accessing a different state, a state where you're clear, grounded, and aligned with what matters. From that state, your decisions improve, your relationships improve, your energy improves, and all you did was take the first hour seriously. So tomorrow when you wake up, pay attention. Don't rush into noise. Don't hand over your focus so easily. Take that first hour and use it to build something real within you, something that doesn't need applause, something that no one else even sees. That quiet victory, before the world wakes up, that's where your transformation begins. So many people are stuck because they believe change has to be massive to matter. They think self-improvement needs to come with fireworks, new routines, big goals, overnight shifts. But that belief is the very thing holding them back. The truth is, lasting change is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to, because it works from the inside out, slowly building, slowly growing. That's why improving yourself 1% every morning works. Not because it's flashy, but because it's sustainable. It's real. You don't need to change your life today. You just need to change one small thing about your morning. Something so small it almost feels too easy. That's the point. You build momentum through micro habits, not through pressure. Something as simple as making your bed, taking a few deep breaths, drinking a full glass of water, or standing in the sunlight for a minute. It might not seem like much, But these tiny shifts are more powerful than people realize. They're not just physical actions. They're messages. Signals to your subconscious that say, I respect myself enough to begin. These micro habits work because they're consistent. And consistency is what shapes identity. If you do one small thing every morning that aligns with the person you want to become, you are becoming that person. Maybe not in a day or a week, but over time, absolutely. Every small act of discipline is a vote for your future self. And the more votes you cast, the stronger your identity becomes. Not in theory, in your nervous system, in your biology. That's how change sticks. We've been conditioned to think success is about intensity. Push hard, grind harder, suffer through it. But the problem with intensity is that it doesn't last. It burns hot, and then it burns out. What lasts is rhythm. A slow, steady rhythm of small improvements, done daily. Not because you feel motivated, but because you made it part of who you are. That's where real strength comes from. From the small, the simple, the boring. The kind of effort no one else claps for. But you feel it changing you from the inside. It's easy to underestimate the power of one tiny shift. People say, what's the point of doing this? It's so small. But they forget the compounding nature of effort. If you improve yourself by just 1% every morning, you won't feel it today, and maybe not tomorrow. But 6 months from now, a year from now, your life will look and feel completely different. And it won't be because of one big event. It'll be because you kept showing up in small ways. The beautiful thing is, once you see the power of these micro habits, you begin to enjoy the process. You no longer chase results with desperation. You trust the process. You trust yourself, because the person who can improve themselves by 1% today can do it again tomorrow. And that reliability, that consistency, is where confidence is born. Not from hype, not from external validation, but from knowing, I show up for myself every single day. And the best part is, these habits don't require talent. They don't care if you're tired or stressed. You don't need to be in the perfect mood to drink water, to take 5 mindful breaths, to read 1 page of a book. You just need to decide. And once you do, you realize it's not about the habit itself. It's about the message it sends to your mind. The message that says, I am worth this effort. So stop waiting for the perfect plan or the perfect time. Start with one small thing, something you can do tomorrow morning, and the next and the next. Stack those wins. Let them build. Let them transform your relationship with yourself. Because improvement isn't a single leap. It's a quiet series of small steps, the kind that no one notices until one day you wake up and realize you've changed. And you did it one morning at a time. Most people wake up and stumble into their day like they've forgotten who they are. No direction, no purpose, just repetition. But if you want to improve, even just 1% every morning, you need more than action. You need identity. You need to stop asking, what do I need to do today? And start asking, who am I becoming? Because once you're clear on that, your mornings stop being random. They become a reflection of something deeper. Your rituals, those simple, repeated actions, begin to carry weight. They're no longer just habits. They become statements about who you are choosing to be. We are not built from the big moments. We are shaped by what we repeatedly do when no one's watching. So when you wake up and choose to journal, even for 5 minutes, it's not about the words. It's about becoming someone who reflects. When you choose to stretch or breathe deeply before checking your phone, it's not about fitness or mindfulness. It's about becoming someone who values presence over distraction. These small acts are mirrors. They show you who you are training yourself to be. The trap most people fall into is copying someone else's morning routine, thinking it will magically change them. But true transformation comes when your rituals are personal, tailored, aligned with your inner values. Maybe your morning needs 10 minutes of silence. Maybe it needs music. Maybe it needs prayer, or movement, or cold water. What matters isn't the ritual itself. It's the meaning you attach to it, the energy you bring to it. When you align your morning with your future self, everything you do starts to carry more gravity. But here's the key. You can't fake this. You can't do these rituals for show. They only work when they're real, when they come from a genuine place inside you. That's why 1% improvement every morning is so powerful. It invites you to be honest. It forces you to examine your routines and ask, is this helping me become who I say I want to be? That question is uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because every morning is a decision. Drift or align, react or create, repeat the old version of yourself or move toward a new one. Think about that. Every morning, you're either reinforcing who you were yesterday or reaching for who you want to be tomorrow. And that choice is made in the small things, in whether or not you sit for a minute and breathe, in whether or not you speak kindly to yourself before anyone else speaks to you. These aren't big, dramatic acts. They're quiet, almost invisible, but they are everything. Because when your rituals reflect your vision, your actions stop feeling like effort. They start feeling like integrity. You're no longer dragging yourself through another habit. You're waking up and saying, this is who I am. And when you start your day from that place of alignment, your energy changes, your decisions change, even your posture changes. You're not playing catch up anymore. You're living on purpose. And it's okay if your rituals are imperfect. They don't need to be flawless. They just need to be consistent. Because what you do every morning becomes a rhythm. A rhythm becomes a pattern. And that pattern becomes your life. So if you want to improve 1% every morning, stop obsessing over what looks impressive. Focus on what feels honest. Choose rituals that connect you back to yourself, that remind you of what matters, that root you in discipline, not pressure. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to begin with one choice, one ritual, one act of clarity. Do it tomorrow, and then again the day after. Let that small act become your anchor. Let it become your reminder that every morning, before the world names you, labels you, distracts you, you have a chance to define yourself, not in theory, in practice, through action. And if you do that, if you begin each day with one small ritual that reflects the person you're becoming, you won't just improve, you'll evolve quietly, steadily, one morning at a time. Before the world demands anything from you, before the emails, the traffic, the meetings, the noise, there's a window. A narrow golden window that belongs only to you. And if you miss it, the day often belongs to everything else. But if you take it, even for a few minutes, you gain something invaluable: control over your mind. And that's the real power. That's where 1% improvement truly begins. Not with your body, not with your schedule, but with your mind. Training the mind each morning doesn't have to look complicated. You don't need to sit cross-legged in silence for an hour. And you don't need to become some expert in meditation or philosophy. You just need to create a moment where you become aware of what's happening in your head. What are you thinking? What are you telling yourself? What are you carrying into the day that doesn't need to come with you? Most people go through life without ever pausing to ask those questions. They're stuck in loops, repeating yesterday's thoughts, yesterday's worries, yesterday's insecurities, and that cycle becomes their personality, their decisions, their destiny. But if you can learn to pause in the morning and examine the mind, just briefly, you start breaking that loop. You start replacing unconscious thinking with conscious awareness. That's not self-help talk. That's transformation. The mind is like a wild horse. If you don't train it, it runs wherever it wants. It panics easily. It fixates on problems. It clings to distractions. But if you guide it, if you learn to sit with it, even for a short while each morning, it begins to listen. It begins to slow down. And that stillness, that space between thought and action, is where wisdom starts to rise. It's where clarity begins. Sometimes that training is as simple as asking yourself one clear question. What matters today? Not what's urgent, not what's screaming for your attention, but what actually matters. That question alone can reset your entire mindset. It pulls you out of reaction and into intention. And intention is what separates progress from motion. You can be busy all day and get nowhere, but if your mind is clear, even 1 hour of focused effort can move your entire life forward. Other mornings, the training might be observation. Just watching your thoughts without needing to change them. That's a hard one for most people, because the moment we sit in silence, we're confronted with everything we've been avoiding. But sitting with it, breathing through it, that's where strength is built. You learn that you're not your thoughts. You're the one who watches them. That distance, that awareness, that's freedom. You don't need the world to be calm for your mind to be calm. You just need to give yourself the chance to build that calm before the world begins. That's the work. That's the practice. And it's subtle. No one will applaud you for it. But when you train the mind consistently, it shows in how you carry yourself, in how you respond under pressure, in how you stay grounded when everything around you is spinning. And here's something most people overlook. Your mind doesn't need to be in a perfect state to be trained. You don't need to feel peaceful or inspired or ready. Some mornings you'll wake up in a fog. Some mornings your thoughts will be loud, chaotic, and negative. That's okay. That's when the training matters most. It's not about forcing silence. It's about learning how to navigate the noise. That's where the 1% lives. Not in feeling great, but in showing up anyway. Even 5 minutes of mental training in the morning, 5 minutes of stillness, clarity, reflection, can have more impact on your day than 5 hours of unchecked momentum. Because once the mind is stable, the rest of life becomes easier to manage. Decisions become sharper, conversations become clearer, and you carry yourself with a kind of quiet power that can't be faked. So when you wake up tomorrow, before reaching for your phone, before jumping into tasks, take that moment, sit, breathe, observe. Ask yourself what kind of mind you're bringing into the day. And if it's not the one you want, begin to shift it, slowly, gently, deliberately. That one act may not look like much from the outside, but inside, it's everything. It's where all real change begins. Everyone wants results. Everyone wants transformation. But very few are willing to do the one thing that guarantees it. Show up every day, regardless of how they feel. Not once in a while. Not only when the mood is right. Every single day. That's the silent power of repetition. That's what 1% improvement every morning is really built on. Consistency, not intensity. Intensity feels good at first. It's exciting. It's dramatic. It gives you that rush. You decide you're going to change your life, and suddenly you're doing 10 new habits. Waking up at 4 a.m., going all in. But it doesn't last, because when life gets heavy, and it will, intensity fades. What stays is rhythm. What stays is the quiet commitment to do the small things, over and over again, even when no one's watching, and especially when you don't feel like it. And that's where most people quit. Not because they're weak, not because they don't want it badly enough, but because they expect progress to be visible right away. They want evidence. They want to feel the change, see the results, prove that it's working. And when that doesn't happen fast, they think they're failing, but they're not. They're just in the phase where the roots are growing. The work is happening, but it's silent, invisible, underground. And if they had stayed with it just a little longer, everything would have shifted. But here's the thing. Consistency isn't glamorous. No one celebrates you for waking up and doing 5 minutes of breathing every morning. No one gives you a medal for reading 1 page of a book every day. But those tiny, repeated acts are the very fabric of transformation. They compound, quietly. They stack, day by day, until suddenly you're standing on a foundation you didn't even realize you were building, and it's strong. Because it was built with patience. One of the most powerful things you can ever do is become the kind of person who follows through. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Someone who does the work not because it's exciting, but because it's who they are. That identity is shaped in the repetition. The moment you stop relying on motivation and start relying on commitment, you become dangerous. You become consistent. And consistent people are unstoppable, not because they never struggle, but because they never disappear. Even on your worst days, you can give 1%. Even when you're tired, even when you're distracted, even when life feels like too much, you can still do something small that honors your path. That's the power of this approach. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to keep showing up, especially when it would be easier not to. That's where character is built. That's where self-respect is earned, not by doing more, but by doing it again. People will ask, is this really enough? Is 1% in the morning really going to change anything? The answer is yes, if you do it every day. It's not about how much you improve today. It's about whether or not you're improving at all, and whether or not you're doing it on purpose. 1% might seem like nothing, but it's everything if it's consistent. That's the difference between the person who starts and stops and the one who evolves. The one who builds, the one who changes. There's a kind of peace that comes when you live this way. You stop chasing results and you start building habits. You stop being at war with yourself and you start trusting the process. You no longer need to convince anyone of your growth because you feel it. You live it. It's in your posture. It's in your focus. It's in the calm way you walk through your day, knowing you did what you said you would do. That's what it means to improve yourself 1% every morning. Not with noise, not with speed, but with quiet, steady effort. The kind that doesn't quit, the kind that stacks, the kind that, over time, builds a life you can be proud of, one quiet morning at a time.